Hello girls, welcome back. Today we are going to start a new chapter, that is nutrition. Now, what do you mean by nutrition? You have heard about food, you have heard about nutrition, you have heard about diet, okay? So, in biology, nutrition means the supply of essential organic and inorganic chemical compounds like proteins, vitamins, and salts to the body. So, nutrition supplies organic and inorganic chemical compounds to the body. Now, all such chemical compounds are called nutrients. So, what are nutrients? The proteins, vitamins, salts, which is supplied to the body, is known as nutrient. Now, what is food? Food is any substance that we eat or drink, whatever you eat, whatever you drink, and it should contain the nutrients. So that is food for you. Example, milk, bread, egg, fish, apple. So you can think of anything that you eat, okay? Now, what is diet? Diet is the combination of food items which we eat in our meals, okay? So if you know, people always emphasizing on eating a balanced diet, okay? So what is a balanced diet? A balanced diet is one which contains all the principal constituent of food in proper quantity for a particular person, okay? Now when we talk about a balanced diet for a particular person, it may be different for different people, okay? Now the balanced diet depends on four main factors. First is the age of the person, whether the person is a child, a young man or woman, or old. Okay, so sex of the individual, whether the person is male or female. Okay, the lifestyle, what type of work is followed by the person, whether a farmer, a sports person, or an office goer. Okay, and even the special needs of the person is considered, whether the person is sick or whether a lady is pregnant, or nursing mother means who is feeding milk to her child. Okay, so that is the balanced diet depends on the four factors of the people. Okay, now meal is the food taken at one time to satisfy the appetite. So we have different meals in a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, tea. Okay, now appetite means the desire to eat, whether you have a good appetite or a bad appetite, how much you can eat, that is known as appetite. And hunger is the uneasy sensation due to lack of food. I don't have to tell you, you know, you feel hungry most of the time. Okay, now why is there a need of nutrition? Now you know all living organisms require food. Why? For growth, building up new protoplasm or cells for growth, repair, providing material for repair of worn out or injured cells. In our body, the cells are continuously made inside the body. Of example, the red blood cells are made in the bone marrow, okay? And it is required to replace worn out red blood cells, okay? And next is energy. It provides energy which is required by the body to carry out various life functions. Remember in mitochondria how it released energy. Okay, so that energy is gotten from the food, glucose, which is broken down, and then energy is released. Okay, and maintenance of chemical composition of the cells. Okay, cells require many nutrients to remain healthy. Next is providing or provision of raw materials for the manufacture of various secretions in our body. There are different types of secretions in our body, like enzymes, hormones, sweat, milk. So food is required as a raw material to manufacture these type of secretions. And of course, protection from disease and infection. Now moving on to the classes of nutrients or the food substance, there are 6 classes of food substances which are known as nutrients. They are carbohydrates, fats, proteins, mineral salts, vitamins, and water. Now carbohydrates are the compounds of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, with hydrogen and oxygen always in the ratio of 2:1. 1. Okay, and carbohydrates are oxidized, means oxygen will act on them in the cells to release energy. So carbohydrates includes sugar, starch, cellulose. Okay, and remember, carbohydrates are the principal means main energy source of the body, because carbohydrates after digestion turns into glucose, which is broken down by oxygen to release energy. That is why they are the principal energy sources in the body. Now moving on to sugars. You know what sugar is. They are soluble in water and they taste sweet. Broadly, the sugars in our food are of two major categories. There are two types of sugar in our food. One is known as monosaccharide. Mono means one, single, okay, single sugars or simple sugar, with a general chemical formula C6H12O6. Remember glucose. These need no digestion and they are straight away absorbed into the body. It does not need to be digested. So there are three types of such simple sugars. One is glucose, popularly known as grape sugar. Okay, it is the most common and it is the simplest sugar which is found in organism. When we say blood sugar, we mean the glucose level in blood. Okay, now next is fructose, which is common in plants and is known as fruit sugar. Next one is galactose, another simple sugar which is found in milk. Okay, the next type of sugar is disaccharide. Di means two or double sugars which have a general chemical formula C12H22O11. Okay, so they have to be digested in the body in order to get absorbed into the body. So there are three types of double sugars. The first one is known as sucrose, which is a commercial sugar, the normal white sugar that we use at home. Okay, and we get that from sugarcane, you know that. Another source of sucrose is the sugar beet. Sucrose is a double sugar and it is made up of two simple sugars, glucose and fructose. Very important. Sucrose is made up of glucose and fructose. Maltose, also known as malt sugar, is made up of two glucose molecules. So what is maltose made up of? Two glucose molecules. Lactose, which is milk sugar, a disaccharide, is made up of glucose and galactose. Okay. Now moving on to starch. Starch is an insoluble carbohydrate. That means it will not dissolve in water. It is in this form that plants commonly store carbohydrates during photosynthesis. When food is produced, when glucose is produced in the plant, okay, many molecules of glucose come together and form starch, and it is stored temporarily in the leaves during the daytime when there is maximum photosynthesis taking place. So at night, when photosynthesis does not take place, this starch again reconverts into glucose and then it is carried to different parts of the plant body. Okay, now potatoes, grains like rice, maize, wheat and barley, and bread are chief sources of starch. They are starchy food, rich in starch. The starch has a chemical formula C6H10O5 and N outside. How many molecules we do not know, and it is known as a polysaccharide. Poly means many. Okay, two other insoluble polysaccharides carbohydrates are cellulose and glycogen. Now where do you find cellulose? Remember what is made up of cellulose? The cell wall of plants. If you remember, we did that in the cell chapter. So cellulose is found in the cell wall of plants. It is not used by our body. It remains undigested. So the food which does not digest in our body, in our alimentary canal, what does it do? It gives roughage for proper functioning of our gut. Okay. Now glycogen is in the form in which carbohydrates are stored in animals. So glycogen you'll find in animals. It is stored in animals in the form of glycogen. And where is it stored? It is stored mainly in the liver and some in the muscles. Now talking about roughage. Okay, it is the non-digestible cellulose, the part the plant cell wall is made up of cellulose, and it cannot be digested in the body. So the cells of all plants have cell walls made up of cellulose. Whenever we eat any fruit or raw vegetables and other plant material, cellulose will not be digested in our body because we do not have any cellulose digesting enzyme. So this undigested cellulose, it is very fibrous in nature. It acts as roughage. Okay, and remember, roughage is very important for our digestive system because it is fibrous. Okay, rough, it absorbs a lot of water and keeps it. So it keeps our fecal matter soft and prevents constipation. Okay, the movement of undigested food through the intestine becomes easier because of the roughage. It also stimulates muscle contraction in the intestinal wall, making the movement of fecal matter easy. So the sources of roughage, from where do you get? Raw vegetables, fruits, corn, half crushed wheat, dalia, as we know in India, are the main sources of roughage in our food. Cabbage is one vegetable which provides a lot of roughage. So if you suffer from constipation, remember you have to take in a lot of roughage. Now next is fat. Fats are made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen content in these nutrients are very less if you compare it with carbohydrates. They produce more energy than carbohydrates. Okay, 1 mole of fat releases 9.45 kilocalories of energy. Now you know the foods which are rich in fats: butter, clarified butter or ghee, cheese, vegetable oils, beef and fish liver oils, that is fat which is present in non-veg food. Okay, and fats and oils are made up of fatty acids and glycerol. Now next, moving on to proteins. Proteins are large chemical molecules. They are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Okay, and remember, I spoke about this in the last chapter, I think, where nitrogen is most essential element in proteins. How nitrogen fixing bacteria is found in leguminous plants. Why? Because they are required in making proteins. So some proteins may also contain sulfur and phosphorus. And amino acids are simple smaller units of proteins. That means proteins are made up of amino acids. Okay, now proteins, you know, it is a chemical material required for the growth and repair of body cells and tissues. In the time of emergency, they can also be oxidized to release energy. Now food which are rich in protein are lean meat, fish, eggs, milk, cheese, nuts, beans, peas. Okay, and if you happen to have a deficiency of protein, that means the intake of protein is less, it leads to weakness, but its severe deficiency causes 2 diseases: Kwashiorkor and Marasmus. Okay, now Kwashiorkor, in Hindi it is known as sukha rog. Sukha means you become very thin. Okay, it is a severe protein deficiency disease which affects very young children. Okay, how does this happen? How is this disease caused? When mothers stop breastfeeding their babies at a very early age and the child is given a diet which is very poor in proteins, very less proteins. So remember, mother's milk is very rich in proteins, and after weaning, the child is given a diet which mainly consists only of carbohydrates, and there is very less protein. So you see how kwashiorkor is caused. The child is suddenly not given the mother's milk and then given a diet which is rich in carbohydrates but very poor in proteins, and the suffering child may die before the age of 5 years. So what are the symptoms of kwashiorkor? Underweight, belly protruding out. Skin becomes dark and scaly, like scales. You can easily, peel it off. Growth is stunted. The child does not grow, become short. The child suffers a loss of appetite, does not want to eat anything. Repeated diarrhea. Liver becomes enlarged, and the child becomes anemic, becomes very pale, very less blood. Okay, and there is swelling or edema of the feet and the face. Why? Because there is accumulation of water in the tissues of the feet and the face. Now you know how it can be controlled, because a child suffers from Kwashiorkor because he is given food which is rich in carbohydrates and poor in protein. So the child who suffers from Kwashiorkor must be given food which is rich in protein, like pulses, milk, egg, fish, and meat. A mixed diet of wheat, gram, peanut, soybean, and jaggery is also useful. Okay, Kwashiorkor is an African term which means sickness of the child when a new baby comes, because when a new baby is born, the elder child will not get enough protein from the mother's milk. So after that, the elder child is given food which is rich in carbohydrates. Okay, so next we move on to another disease which is known as marasmus. Marasmus usually affects infants below the age of 1 year, and this is due to the deficiency of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in the diet. Now, this disease is caused again due to the sudden stoppage of breastfeeding, followed by a diet poor in energy giving food like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So, what are the symptoms? Less body weight. There is degeneration resulting in very weak body as if formed of muscle, skins, and bone only. See, you can see a child who suffers from marasmus. Okay, now the skin becomes loosely folded, thin face, thin limbs, and retarded physical as well as mental growth. Okay, and the ribs appears prominent. You can see how the ribs are protruding out here. So this child suffers from marasmus. He does not grow physically, neither does he grow mentally. Okay, and the difference between Kwashiorkor and marasmus, table 10.1. Please study, children. This is important. You know all the differences are very important. Now moving on to the control and treatment. The child suffering from marasmus must be given diet which is rich in proteins and carbohydrates. Okay. So next nutrient are mineral salts. They are needed in the diet in very small quantities. Table salt contains mainly sodium chloride, you know that. Many other mineral elements are obtained from various foodstuffs such as green vegetables and fruits, and some important mineral elements and their nutritional values are. So as I've already told you, mineral salts are needed in the diet in small quantities. But again, there are some elements which are required in a little bit larger quantity, and some are needed in a little bit lesser quantity. So we have macronutrients which are needed in large quantity. First is calcium. You get your calcium from dairy foods, that is milk, cheese, butter, okay, and even from beans and cabbages. And the function is that calcium is the main constituent of bones and enamel. It is also required for muscle contraction and clotting of blood. Deficiency disease, rickets, that is poor skeletal growth. Okay, next is sodium. You know, you get your sodium from the salt that you take, sodium chloride, that is table salt. It regulates acid and base equilibrium in the body. Deficiency disease, muscular cramps, and nerve impulses do not get transmitted because sodium helps in the transmission of nerve impulses. Next is potassium. You get your potassium from banana, potato, citrus fruits, and the function is for nerve and muscle activity, fluid balance in the body, and secretion of neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. Okay, when nerve impulses jump from one neuron to another neuron, the neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine, is required, which is secreted by potassium. So deficiency diseases, the nerve impulses do not get transmitted. Next is phosphorus. You get your phosphorus again from dairy products, cereals, beans, nuts, meat and egg. Okay, the function of phosphorus is synthesis of nucleic acid, ATP, NADP, adenosine triphosphate, nucleoadenine diphosphate. Okay, and for healthy bones, enamel, for muscle contraction and conduction of nerve impulse again. Deficiency disease, if you have less phosphorus in your body, then your bones becomes very soft. Next is magnesium. You get your magnesium from vegetables, whole grain, nuts, seafood, meat. Function is bone and tooth structure, synthesis of enzymes in the body. Deficiency diseases increase irritability of nervous system. Next macronutrient is sulfur. You get your sulfur again from dairy products, onion, garlic, radish, meat and egg. The function is sulfur is a component of protein and some coenzymes. Enzymes which help the enzymes are known as coenzymes. And deficiency disease, skin problems. The last macronutrient is chlorine. Again, you know you get your chlorine from sodium chloride, that is the table salt. Okay, it helps in the water balance in the body, secretion of hydrochloric acid in the gastric juice. And deficiency disease, muscular cramps. Now, moving on to micronutrients, that is, which is needed in smaller quantities. You have iron. You get your iron from whole cereals, fish, nut, egg yolk, liver, kidney. Okay, and function of iron, it helps in the synthesis of hemoglobin associated with oxidation and reduction reactions in the body. Deficiency disease, anemia, that is deficiency of hemoglobin in the blood. Next micronutrient is cobalt. You get your cobalt from milk, cereals, pulses, liver, red meat. Okay, and cobalt is required in the development of red blood cells, and it is also a component of vitamin B12. Okay, the deficiency disease is pernicious anemia because it is helping in the development of red blood cells. Next is copper. You get your copper from nuts, legumes, liver, kidney, and copper helps in the production of melanin, that is the skin pigment, cell oxidation and synthesis of enzymes. And deficiency disease is loss of body weight and anemia again. Next is zinc. You get your zinc from cereal, pulses, nuts, meat, and liver oil. It is required for the synthesis of enzymes, carbon dioxide transport in blood, that is taking carbon dioxide from various cells to the lungs for exhalation. Okay, deficiency diseases, retarded growth, skin lesions, albinism, that is loss of pigmentation. Next is iodine. The sources is iodized salt, mineral, water, seafoods. Okay, and the function is, it is the component of thyroxine hormone secreted by the thyroid gland. Okay, the deficiency diseases, goiter, that is enlargement in the neck, cretinism in children. Cretinism means poor mental as well as physical growth. Next micronutrient is fluorine. You get your fluorine from mineral water and milk. It is the component of tooth, enamel and bone. And deficiency disease is dental decay. Okay, your teeth gets decayed. Next is manganese. You get your manganese from vegetables, and it is required for bone development and even nitrogen metabolism. And the deficiency disease is poor bone development. And finally, we have molybdenum. It is found in pulses, cereals, meat. Okay, and the function is, it helps in assimilation of nitrates in our body. And deficiency diseases, there is a slight retardation of growth. Okay, children, we will stop here In the next upload, we will continue from vitamins. Have a great day. God bless you.